Yeah. All right. The whole gang's here. The whole gang's here. So everybody gets to hear it. Wish You Weren't Here. One of 4 songs I created for my master's thesis at Berkeley while I was finishing up my master's in music production. 4 different songs. I wanted to showcase everything I could do. We had a pop song, punk rock song, singer-songwriter type song, and an experimental electronic song. Wish You Weren't Here is the pop song. It was made on the premise of a postcard going to somebody you're glad isn't with you on vacation, isn't with you at all. Is the whole thing was Wish You Weren't Here. That was the whole idea for it. I start pretty much all of my songs in FL Studio. This was the initial song. So I'll play the original vocal takes I had for it, but they're very bad. And nobody can laugh at me because I'm a professional, okay?
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny season, I'm sitting stress-free while I'm making all sorts of new memories. I went for a hike yesterday, climbed up a mountain and that shit was great. No one believes all the stories I say, but I climbed on a shark and swam into the bay.
Not my best work. I didn't have a pre-chorus at that point. And also, it's just auto-tuned. I didn't feel like actually singing in tune. So if you throw auto-tune on it, it works. 100 BPM at this point in the key of C. That's where we went with it. I think it slowed down to 98 in the final. But that's that. No pre-chorus, and then into the chorus.
Here, I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be farther from you. From you. From you. Are you on the way? I really don't care. There's no place like home, and you should say that. I hope that this postcard will find you real soon. Access to me and not ever to you.
I wrote the verses. I had Aaron Dillard help me with choruses, and then he has his verse on here. So you get the classic 2012 pop song where you have the regular part and the rap part, because that's a thing that everybody loves. The verses went through quite a few iterations. The chorus had that main idea throughout the entire time. Little words were changed here and there just to fit into the syllable structure of the song. Breaking it down, that little pluck, always there, still in the final part. The drum groove also doesn't change too much, I don't think. Yep. Just a little drum loop. And then you add the 808 in. Yeah, then it starts to be a song. Just a little pluck that I made. And then a little, I think it's a pan flute. It was supposed to be a pan flute, but it sounds more regular fluty, so I just called it a regular flute in the final stems when I rendered everything out. Yeah, so breaking down this first sound, that's just in silent. A little detuned saw, square pluck, my typical go-to sound for any kind of pluck. A lot of release so that it's able to just breathe after the pluck sound. Same goes for the cutoff. It's just there for the initial hit. And then you get this kind of bigger sound on the back end of it. This little pluck is something I made in Serum. I used one of the Juno waveforms. Same kind of deal with the cutoff of the filter, making the whoop, whoop, whoop kind of sound. It worked. This is one of my sounds that I make, and I put into quite a few songs at this point. Not that you've necessarily heard them because they're not released, but that's aside the point. Our 808. This is my 808 that I have been using on everything lately. It's one of my favorite 808s that I've ever made. It's just a little. It has some bit crush on it, and I think that's why I like it. I like the harmonics on the high end. This song was written, let's see, this is the original file. So if we look at the info, it was started on March 6th of 2021. We're nearly a year and a half out, and now it's out. 6 hours on the track. Yeah, so that all of that kind of makes up the chorus. Oh, yeah. The pan flute, Expand 2. Great plugin. Serum and Silent, though, those are my two main synth instruments that I use for everything. The breakdown. This little loop, that was Aaron's idea. It was just a little repeating loop. In the final take, you'll hear it. It actually, I put on a formant shifter, so it has some like movement to it. It isn't just stagnant. And then we get the uke in there. Hold on. It's here. It's the same one that I used to make the song. Just a little loop. And then the Piece de la Resistance. It's the bongo loop. The Swindale Cheesecake Sample Pack bongo loop. I've used it so much, but it was also one of the first sample packs that I paid for to start this whole collection. And it's great. I had all these things. The bongos. Yeah. So songwriting, the main idea was there. The hook was there. It was just about structuring around that to make it be a fully complete kind of pop song. Yeah, songwriting relatively easy for this. It was interesting to write just because I had such a clear idea for it, but I wasn't able to put all the words in it by myself. So Aaron helped out getting all the lyrics to fit inside the syllabic structure of the song. That turns into the actual demo of the song.
Yesterday, climbed up the mountain and that shit was great. No one believes all the stories I say, but I jumped on a shark and swam into the bay.
I jumped on a shark. Not the final word I used. And I am very happy about that. But all the same kind of things are here. It's just a little bit more fleshed out.
Here, I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you. From you. From you. Are you on the way? I really don't care. There's no place like home, and you just stay there. I hope that this postcard will find you real soon. Exos to me and not ever to you.
So I put a lot of auto-tune on when I'm actually recording demos, just because it's easier than having to go back and pitch correct or actually sing the right notes the first time through. But that's just kind of how it goes if you're trying to go through things fast. Which I was. 4 songs, and I had to complete all 4 of them from like demo to the fully produced and mastered version. I think like 3-4 months. So it was pretty quick, considering I also had 2 other classes going on at the same time. Yeah, but we get to
hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou.
The
I try
verse.
to leave when it's short and sweet, cause heart ends meet like shores and seas. No shade for these palm trees, I hope I'm fucking you out, you check on these coconuts. And if you know what's up, I know you stick to your stomach, I hope you throw it up.
I have a few things to say.
yeah. Let's listen to that for a second here. It was that is the verse that Aaron did, the first takes. We ended up changing the register that he was doing it in because down on the low, it just wasn't making sense in the context of the song. You know, high energy, you got to go up higher in your voice. Yeah, this one is a little bit better mixed. It's not my mixing stage. I've been separating out mixing from actually writing and producing the songs now. in a sense. I have a rough mix when I'm doing the production just so I can like how it sounds, but the actual nitty-gritty going down and mixing it, that's a whole separate process for me now, and I've just found separating it out kind of alleviates the stress from not having something sound right when I'm just writing the song. Yeah, the little loop stays in. Krista K Radio, she was a big proponent. I was going to take it out, but she said leave it and it sounds good. So I left it in. It was cool cuz it was a master's thesis, so I had an advisor, and I picked Krista Rayford. She goes by K Radio. She's an artist now out of Chicago, returned to Chicago. She's great. She was kind of overseeing me making all of these songs, and she helped give input and just kind of guide me through this part of the journey I was at. And so it was always nice to be able to have her feedback on these, and she thought this one was great, as did a lot of other people, which is why I ended up putting it out before any of the other tracks. But this was the last bit where I was actually working in FL Studio. After this point, I moved over to Pro Tools so I could actually track. So when I go into FL Studio, I render out all of my mixer tracks, and then I bring them in here. The ones that I actually want to keep, like the kick and the snare, are their own, and they stay there. But for stuff like the ukulele and the vocals, and sometimes, guitar for other things, those will be re-recorded fully, just because they're scratch. They're not the final product. So this is what I got after. This is before mixing.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny seas, and I'm sitting stress-free while I'm making all sorts of new memories.
So all of these are the final vocals that I used. They just aren't mixed yet. The recording process for these vocals was interesting. As you can see, they're different colors. Different colors means they were different clips. When you're recording your vocals, you don't tend to just do a single take. These are all the vocal takes I did for this one section of the song, the single section. It can be a pain, but you can go through and find parts of each take that you like, and then you send them up to the top, and then that is what you use for your final. It's all of these kind of glued together versus one single take all the way through. You don't, unless you're really lucky and you're really good at what you do, like insane, you're usually not going to be getting your favorite take one try. It's going to be a conglomeration of multiple takes. In this case, I think we had 1, 2, 3. I used 3 takes for the final one. I cut from this one, and the one that is now up here. Pro Tools, actually, in all of the bad things that Pro Tool has about it, I really like how the comping works, because you can record to different playlists, they're called, and then you cut out which parts, and then you hit this little arrow here once you've selected a part, and you hit that up, and it'll just send it into that main track. And it's very, very easy to do vocal comping. Go over to waveform, so we just see that main one. The things that make pop songs a good pop song, from what I've found and what I've listened to, it's the multiple layers of vocals. You're not going to be getting that full sound unless you have multiple layers of vocals. So here,
Hello from Oahu. From Oahu.
it's just another little vocal. Those were one takes, and that's just because I'll keep going over and over until I get the right one. It's one line, so fully comping doesn't make sense.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do.
So going through, I comped all that, and then we get over here to our ukulele. Let's listen from the beginning. So the beginning ukulele, we have a left channel, a center channel, and a right channel. And in doing this, you get a really widespread sound. If you have headphones on, you can hear the spread across stereo space. So 2 channels, left and right. The center helps to reinforce it. Just right in the center. if I just play this. Just on the left. Same deal for the right. And those left and right channels, I actually put a chorus on. This is an Arturio plugin I got for free called Chorus June 6 for the Juno 6. It's a remake of that chorus unit, and it just makes it kind of like wee woo 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 phasey kind of sounding. And for, you know, left and right channels, because you're just using it to spread out the sound and space, it's cool to kind of put some of those effects on, because then you get kind of these warping effects between the center. You can hear how it kind of warps a little bit, and just a little bit. Everything in moderation, including chorusing effects. Yeah, so all these top ones, the kick, the snare, the hi-hat, the ride, the percussion, the bongo loop, Swindell bongo loop, the 808, the pluck, the synths, pretty much all the synths, and the FX. Those are all on the rendered out channels, and they pretty much stayed the same. It was easy enough. Ukulele was re-recorded. All the vocals are re-recorded. So pre-chorus here.
I have a few things to say to let you know anyways, maybe this wasn't the way
This
it's
is one of those
supposed to be,
that it had a lot of takes
but
again.
I have a few thoughts to say and I don't want you in my brain. All you are is a wannabe of me.
All of these takes ended up with this final composition. Because I wasn't mixing at this point, I don't actually have too much on here. Again, just auto-tune, because it was easy getting stuff done quickly for the tracking. And then we move into the first chorus here.
Hey, I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you.
In the original demo, you just get this one.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you. From you. From you.
I just re-recorded it until I got it right, because I didn't want to use up disk space to save bad takes. The chorus works as well as it does because
I wish you weren't here.
it has the power to it on the main, but then we duplicate it and we put it slightly over into the left channel.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you.
You do the same thing left and right.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you.
So the differences between those is what gives it that phasey warping sound, because the waveforms aren't aligned perfectly. They are aligned semi-perfectly. There's parts that line up and parts that don't, and so you get this cool wavering sound. And if you pair it up with the centered one, again, just like the ukulele.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you. From you.
You get cool, nice wide vocals. But we don't stop there. We also add in...
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place
harmony.
on this earth could be far enough from you. From you. From you. Are you on the way? I really don't care. There's no place like home and you should stay there. I hope that this postcard will find you real soon. Exos to me and not ever to you.
And then the last one.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far
Just-
enough from you.
Just sitting on the lowest note in my range.
I wish you weren't here. I won't see you soon. No place on this earth could be far enough from you. From you. From you. Are you on the way? I really don't care. There's no place like home and you should stay there. I hope that this postcard will find you real soon. Exos to me and not ever to you.
Exos to me and not ever to you was such a good line. I was so pleased with myself when I thought of that. I was going to have a bridge, but I didn't know what to write for it. I felt like nothing was fitting, so we just put back in the loop. Just subtle. Little things. Then we get over to Aaron's verse here.
Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to.
We were able to, what is that? 13 separates just to get to this one. It sounds so good though. Like you can't tell. I cut mid-word for some of these, and because of how I was able to like crossfade it all, Yeah, like here. It sounds like a seamless take, which is what you should always be aiming for when doing this kind of vocal. It should sound seamless, like somebody did sing it all at once. It's a trick of the trade, the secret they don't want you to know. I know this one thing that the music industry doesn't want you to know. It's making a seamless vocal.
Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to.
So we brought it up.
Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be.
So bringing it up in the register helped with the energy of the overall track. Yeah, it kind of just helped to bring the energy up versus, I don't know if we did.
Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to. Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to. Oahu, guessing that you. Hello from
Yeah, there we
Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to.
It doesn't fit as well, right? And so if you bring it up,
Hello from Oahu, guessing that you probably be reading this from the bayou. I tried to.
we were doing different takes to kind of see which tone fit the best, and this kind of more bold, brash, in your face one was the best option. So that is what we did with that vocal, and we just went through. We got a bunch of different takes. Again, what makes a pop song? If you have multiple layers of vocals. So
No shade, but these palm trees, they keep blocking you out and you could choke on these coconuts.
originally Aaron was just gonna sing that,
No shade, but these palm trees, they keep blocking you out and you could choke on these coconuts.
but
No shade, but these palm trees, they keep blocking you out and you could choke on these coconut.
I felt like the higher one was better, so I just left one in.
No shade, but these palm trees, they keep blocking you out and you could choke on these coconuts. And if you know what's up, I know you're sick to your stomach, you gotta throw it up.
Yep, and then back into the pre-chorus, and I pretty much reused the same vocals for the chorus. I had some differences in them, but it was I used majority of the same ones. That's fine. That's pop music. Unless you're doing something huge, you probably keep the vocals the same. Yeah, pre-chorus pretty much the same. All of the tracking took, I don't know, if I could estimate, 4 or 5 hours, and then editing the vocals took longer. I ended up, what I did, I rendered out all these, and then I tuned them in a tool called Melodyne, which is the actual auto-tune that is happening if you hear songs nowadays. Auto-tune is great for the effect of, like, you know, the T-Pain effect. But if you want to actually get correctly tuned vocals, Melodyne is the way to go. It's just a lot more precise, and you can do a lot more with it. It's very intuitive, too. Better than the same kind of tool that Auto-Tune creates, in my opinion. Time and a place for it, and to get that effect is the correct time and place for it. Not much else to show you here because it's just all the tracking got done, you know, spent time comping, tracking it all. I have the basic reverb just to run some reverb on vocals to hear what it'll sound like. And then once we finished up all the tracking, that is when we open up the mix session. Yeah, it got, so these vocals individually tuned, and then we're just going into mixing. So when I set up my mixing in Pro Tools, I'll start with the kick just to get it. Get that solid thump. This was my kick EQ. I cut out all the low end because I have an 808 that is taking up all that space. So better to trim it a little bit so that there isn't too much frequency overlap. Here too, if I turn that off, you just get to the beef of the kick a lot sooner, and it's just cutting out a little bit of the mud. The Neutron compressor, it was just a slight compressor. The kick was already compressed as is, so I didn't feel I needed to do much there. This was just on there if I needed to do any slight tweaking or if it got too loud ever. Decapitator. Let's talk about Decapitator for a second. It is so good. It is one of my favorite plugins to use currently. Decapitator. It adds harmonics onto your sound source, and in doing so, it allows these sounds to have a little bit more of a crunch, more of, a brightness to them if you want it. And additionally, it helps it to be heard on smaller systems. So say I got these nice studio monitors up here, the Yamaha HS7s. They sound very good. I have these great headphones on, Bear Dynamic DT990s, I believe. They sound very good. What are most people listening to music on? These, instead of the Skull Candy earbuds, AirPods, a phone speaker that's just not very capable of sending all these low frequencies or these like mid frequencies at a discernible volume. So if you add on harmonics, those sounds can be perceptually heard at those higher frequencies because they have a higher frequency within them then. So that's with it on. It gives it that low. It helps the low end be a little bit more thumpy for the kick, at least. And then the kick itself is actually sent into a secondary channel that is being used as a sidechain. So if I needed to sidechain anything, I can do that. Snare. Again, just EQ, little to take off the bottom end, and decapitator once again. It's great. And then this is where I start using sends. So reverb for all of these things. I don't like using individual channels during mixing anymore because it doesn't keep it as cohesive. The setup for this track was easy. Valhalla Room reverb and a little plate. Little plate is amazing for vocals. So that's the vocal one alongside some other stuff. And essentially what happens, all of these, if it has over here under the sends channel reverb 1 and reverb 2, I am sending that volume of this channel into the reverb channel, which is then being routed into the submaster, which is then going into the master chain so you can hear it. Yeah, that's kind of how that all works around. For mixing, I think it's the best way to do it. You keep your CPU load low, and you also get, a cohesive sound. The hi-hats. This is where things started getting interesting. If you have monitors or like headphones, you can hear it's moving back and forth between the left and the right. Pan Man helps to just give some motion. And with hi-hats, it's good to give them some motion. Otherwise, it's this one high-end frequency that is just going to stagnate. So if you can do something to move it around, whether it's changing pitch or changing where it is in the stereo field, you should do it. And that is what I do there. For the ride, we're just getting this, this mid-high section isolated. Percussion, again, cutting off the low end. And our bongo loop, little EQ, little compression. That's all it needed. All of these drums, do I have them being sent? I did not. So typically I have a drum compressor channel, but I wasn't doing that for this song, probably because of the kick. The kick would be hitting it too hard, and then the compressor would be doing too much, and it would just sound kind of off. The 808, to mix the 808.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do.
This is where we sidechain. So I didn't actually EQ it at all. Didn't feel I needed to. Thick, mild crunch on the 808. Sounds good. And then we use Neutron to compress it down and sidechain it. So if you see here, I take the extension from the kick up here, and it gets routed into this plugin so that whenever get a little ducking, so the kick and the bass don't clash with each other. Yeah, 808s. It's a contested point to be sidechaining it, but I do it. I like how sidechaining sounds. I think it sounds neat, so I put it in. We get to all the synths here. So the main pluck, a little EQ, a little compression, send it into the reverb. I designed the sound so that it would fit into the space, so I didn't have to EQ it as much, equalize all the frequencies. The high pluck, again, I'm making my synths so I don't have to EQ as much. I probably could have, but again, I had to move quick, and so that's where we were going. I did put this on. This is Valhalla Supermassive. It's a free plugin you can get, and it just if I up the mix of it, sounds kind of like a plate, but you get a nice ringing sound, and that's what I wanted for this pluck to do with its frequency range. Moving into the flute, this one was a funny one. I cut out the low end. I should have done more with the flute, but it's out now. Can't do anything. And then I just threw a OTT compressor on it. Just make it a little bit more aggressive. Into the reverb, call it a day. The effects, I mixed those during the render out stage, so I just had to do some volume adjustment. Easy stuff with the effects. Songs need to have some effects. If you don't have them, it can sound a little bit more bare because you don't have anything building or, falling from points of high energy to low energy. So putting the effects in help you to solidify those within the aural sphere of where the energy of the song is going. So a little, just a little into the downlifter. I think I only used that sample. So we get into the ukulele. The chorus had to come back over, of course. EQ, just a little boost, mids and highs. The Wish You Weren't Here loop. So that has a movement to it, as you can hear, and that's because of the Vocal Synth. Vocal Synth is a plugin by iZotope. I made a preset all myself. Cool. Yeah. You can see the formant is shifting. The formant is like the space through the sound is coming, and it can change the frequency range of your notes, but not the actual note itself, which is interesting. It's an interesting combination. It's how you get the chipmunk sound. If I just you can sing the same notes, but you just get it sounds higher because of how it shifted. And then a little micro shift, which is just a little phase shifter. It sounded good. I put it in. Simple as that. Let's talk about mixing the vocals.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny season, I'm sitting stress-free while I'm making all sorts of new memories.
Soothe 2. This is when I was able to, I used on demo while mixing, and then I went and purchased it after. Soothe 2 goes and intelligently ducks if there's any resonant frequencies. So without it...
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny season, I'm sitting stress-free while I'm making all sorts of new memories.
It just helps it to sit better in the track. It removes any of those resonant frequencies to a point where they're still there, but they're not going to be as glaringly obvious in the full song. Again, well, not again. You shouldn't be listening to tracks in isolation when mixing, because if you listen to it just by itself, you'll never get what you want. And people aren't, unless you're doing a breakdown like this or somebody is remixing it, nobody's ever going to hear just that part of the song itself. It's always going to have everything else around it. So don't listen to the any individual channel by itself when you're mixing for very long, if at all. Our EQ, this is my basic EQ I do for my vocal. I used a KSM 32 microphone to record it, and I liked how that was pulling my voice through. Sounded good to me. And I think it complements my voice well. So I don't need a whole lot of EQ for that. A little compression.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm tree.
When I say a little bit of compression, it's a lot of compression. I either sing too loud or too quiet. And so if I compress it, I can get it all out to the same volume and it sounds good. And then we just DS a little bit more off of what Soothe 2 is taking off. So DS is all the S sounds. And so if you can take those out, you don't get it as up front in your ear. It hurts if there's too much S's. Reverb goes through, delay goes through. It's just a light delay. I did automate the delay.
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny seas, and I'm sitting stress-free while I'm making all sorts of new memories.
So that is the first verse. My vocals, I don't know. I've been working with my vocals forever. So I kind of know what I want it to sound like. And so I don't have to do too much processing because I'll try to find the right microphone to record myself first. We have the harmonies. Those are going to be...
From Oahu, chillin' beach.
They aren't very loud. They're enough that you can hear them, but if you weren't focusing on them, you wouldn't hear them. They're supposed to just blend in. And they do that. Pre-chorus gets funky.
But I have a few things to say and I'll let you know anyways, maybe this wasn't the way it's supposed to be.
So we go through all the regular chain with Soothe, the EQ, the compression, the de-esser, the auto-tune, just to get that effect. And then to get some more effect, I throw an Echo Boy, again by Soundtoys, great stuff, to get some vibrato. If I turn it all the way up.
But I have a few things to say and I'll let you know anyways, maybe this wasn't the way it's supposed to be.
Just to give it a little movement. You can hear it, but it's not supposed to be the main thing. The lyrics are supposed to be speaking, but you want to have some sort of effect to get it moving. Same deal. I put a phaser on it.
But I have a few things to say and I'll let you know anyways, maybe this wasn't the way it's supposed to be.
With a phaser, you got to be careful not to go too far with it. When Billie Eilish has the part in Bad Guy, we go, I'm the bad guy, where it sounds like she's singing into the fan. That's a phaser. And I wanted to get a similar effect, but not that dramatic. So, phaser. Easy enough. I do go through, I automate my volumes, and I clip gain these individual parts if there's anything going on with it. Same kind of deal happens with the vocal stack. All of that just goes through the regular processing and we get reverb. Some of them are set, some of them are automated. I do know that for sure. Moving to verse 2 with Aaron. I've been working with Aaron's vocals for a while, so I know what he's looking for. Soothe 2, the Pro Q, you see I just bump his up higher than mine. I pull out some of that frequency, bump some of the high just to get more high-end content, because high-end content in pop music is good. High-end in the sense of frequency range, so high frequencies. A little compression. I use the vocal style. I like that one from FabFilter. DS and a decapitator. The modern drive setting for vocals, A+. You gotta adjust it a little bit per vocal, but sounds very good.
No shade, but these palm trees, they keep blocking.
Why didn't you got your candies, coconut?
Yeah, coconuts. Pre-chorus, same deal. That's kind of the whole song. I didn't have hardware to master it on at this point, So I was using Ozone for the most part. I think I did remaster it. I mastered it once for class a year ago. And then, by the time I'm putting it out, I realized there's things I can change a year and a half later, or like a year later from when I last did it. So I go back and I remaster the song in Reaper because I was trying to use it a little bit more. So Wish You Weren't Here 2022 remaster. There we go. I have a compressor, an Art Pro VLA with custom tubes in it. Sounds so good. Just a little bit of optical compression. It has just a nice touch. It glues everything together. For the remaster, I did use Ozone just because I feel comfortable in it, because I got to learn it from the guy who wrote the manual. On the track itself, I used a little bit of EQ. I dropped some of that low end below 16 hertz, boosted 72, cut at 310. All of this just little, like maximum 3 decibels of like adjustments. I don't like to do too much more for that in mastering, because if I wanted to do it, I should have done it in mixing. That's my thought behind it. So that EQ is running into a RIA insert, which has my compressor hooked up into it. So it runs out of the computer, into the audio interface, out of the interface, into my Pro VLA compressor, out of the compressor, back into the interface, and then back into Reaper here. And then we have Ozone. So a little bit more of EQ here. There was too much happening at like 6 to 10K. I had to drop it. The exciter then goes and adds in more harmonics, kind of like how Decapitator does. Imager, I wanted less image stereo width on my low end, so I narrowed it slightly, and then I widened 300 to 3K, and then 3K to 20K, I widened even more. The low end focus, I typically don't use, but I found that it helped to bring out my kick a little bit, so it was nice. It just had a little bit more of a punch to it. And then we ran that into our maximizer. The maximizer here, we're using the IRC3 mode, which isn't the latest, but I like how the crisp sounds compared to like the modern IRC4 setting. So I run all that, and then the last two things in my chain here are tonal balance control, which I use in tandem with a reference track, and Insight 2, which just gives me a readout of how all the like this data about the song. I can see how loud it is. I can see
Hello from Oahu, chillin' beachside, don't worry what I do. Palm trees, sunny season.
it doesn't sound good now because I messed up my compressor. I was working on something else, so it doesn't have the same setting, but same kind of idea. We got pretty loud with this song. I think I got it down to like -8 LUFS. Yeah, it was loud. It sounded good though. And at the end of the day, that is what I want. That's pretty much the making of the song though. It's a little self-explanatory, a little bit to some secret sauce, which are just plugins, because I don't have all that much hardware, nor do I necessarily need all that much hardware. Yeah, Wish You Weren't Here. You can stream it now on all streaming services.